Cortland Career Services are supporting this program. I also want to say to everyone, if you want to, please feel free to show your face to everybody if you feel comfortable, but keep your mic on mute if you would, please. We will also ask questions at the end of the session. So any questions you have, if you do put them in the chat, that would be great. And I will try to scroll through them and get them at the end of the session. If there's a real good question, go ahead and put it in there. And if I can jump in between the sessions, I'll try to jump in for you and get the questions answered for you. I do have one statement that I'd like to read for folks tonight. Give me 1 second. I will read that for everybody, and then we will get going. The SUNY Cortland Alumni Association takes pride in creating among a Cortland family an inclusive environment for alumni, students, faculty, staff, and all other campus community members. Any demonstration of bias, racism, derogatory remarks, or any other actions that individually or systematically harm others have no place in our university community and is not tolerated. By attending or participating in this event, you acknowledge that you will act in a respectful manner. Failure to adhere to this statement will not be tolerated, and you may be asked to leave the event. Together, we can work to build an inclusive and welcoming environment for all. So let's begin the program. Today, I'd like to welcome our alumni panelists. The first person, and if you could just do a little wave in case people are looking at the grid, is Dr. Theodore Fulton, class of 96. A little wave. And then next is Andre Short, sorry about that, class of 10.
No problem.
Sorry about that. Michelle Barron, class of 01, Masters 03. And then the last is Mo Abufara, class of 2019. So the first question I'd like to put out to you all is, please give us a little description of yourself and tell us what you're doing now. And whoever would like to start first, feel free.
I'll go first. I'll take the plunge. So again, Dr. Ted Fulton from actually Randall Hall, because I see Bishop Hall is actually is in the house. So I got to at least represent Randall back in the day. Currently the Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum Instruction, Bayport Blue Point School District. Before that, high school principal for 10 years in 2 different districts on Long Island, Hewlett-Woodmere School District and the Middle Country School District. And prior to that, I was an assistant principal and social studies teacher. In addition, I am also an adjunct at the college level, and I'm the current president of the New York State Association of Supervisors of Curriculum Development, and I am a past president and active member of the Long Island Association of Curriculum Development. So you might have heard of ASCD. So we're the state and then local affiliates based off of that. So I just enjoy looking forward for opportunity to working with young teachers and trying to get them the foot in the door and try to help out in any way that I can.
I was next in the lineup, so I'll introduce myself next. My name is Andre Short. I am 7 through 12 English. I'm currently teaching right outside of Utica, which is in the middle of the state. And in 2018, I was recipient of the Empire State Excellence in Teaching Award, which is the highest honor that is given to educators in the state of New York. I currently teach English 12, which gets students college credit, and also public speaking, which is primarily sophomore students.
Okay, I am Michelle Barron. I'm Associate Director in Career Services at Cortland. Since I never left SUNY Cortland, so it's a weird journey that I've been on. So I went to Cortland as a psychology major intending on being a guidance counselor. I quickly shifted into secondary English education, where I probably would have done pretty well, but then I thought I should have more influence on little kids or for a longer period of time. So I thought childhood ed was a good fit for me. So I graduated elementary ed back in the day, taught 3rd grade for a year, went back for my master's in childhood ed to get that teacher requirements, and then stumbled into my role through all of my on-campus positions. So I had a child. This is a big intro, but I had a child, came back half-time, and then I've kind of worked my way along ever since into different kind of roles and responsibilities. So I've had a weird weird life, but a very linear in a way, which is completely uncommon in our world right now. So for students, every day as much as possible to work on with them and kind of help them sort out what they want to do with their lives and what they value and what. So.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I am Moaz Abukwara, or Mo, as many people may know me. Shout out to Lima, I see you in here. I graduated 2019, so that was the May before COVID started. But I student taught in the fall, so right before COVID started, I was student teaching in Syracuse, and then I got a long-term sub job in Ithaca. And I was in Ithaca prime COVID time, and then I finished my basically placement as a sub over there in around May or June, and then I was struggling to find a job during COVID, as many people or many graduates were. And after like 100 applications, I got only about 3 interviews, but it's reasonable, COVID, you don't know what's gonna happen. So I got those interviews. I got rejected from one of them, but then they ended up calling me back and saying that they want to reconsider their rejection. So now I am working at a charter school in the Bronx. Um, and yeah, and I'm teaching out of my bedroom. So, yep, that's me.
That's great. I love to see everybody teaching out of all their different rooms and their kids and their dogs and everybody's in the background, and it makes me happy to see. So the next question I have for you all is, tell us about your first teaching or educational position. Whoever wants to go, feel free. You can go in the same order if you'd like.
All right, go same order, keep it organized. So I was lucky enough, was hired right out of Cortland. I was hired for a .4 social studies position, which found out 2 days before superintendent's conference day, they accessed and eliminated. So I went from having at least a part-time job to gone. So I started, they asked me to be a priority sub for a month. And then unfortunately, the teacher was removed from the classroom and they put me right in. And so I taught 5 classes at the time in New York State. Not every class was a Regents class at the time. I had 5 Regents classes. I took over in October. And in November, New York State announced that everybody had to take the Regents. So I had 130 kids that started the year with not having to take a Regents exam, and then basically them being told they had to take a Regents exam. So talk about baptism by fire. And that's exactly, what it was, learning together with the kids, being 3 or 4 days ahead in the lesson planning, teaching all the different kids. And in addition, I was also coaching football and baseball at that time. So, which really worked well. So, and that'd be a recommendation for, as you're going in for your new positions, to most certainly look for an opportunity to volunteer and get your name known, assist with clubs and activities if they're possible. Great to help build relationships with kids, and it's a positive way to get noticed by administration.
My first position was English. I actually stayed in touch with my English teacher senior year. Told her that I was going to go into community college first, then SUNY Cortland. I did. 4 years later, she was pregnant, and I filled in for her for long term. It was January 3rd. I graduated. I did my student teaching after my senior year, so I graduated in December, and then January 3rd, right after break, I started teaching. And this teacher continued to extend her leave. She was out for a year, and they're allowed 2 years. And then second year, she was pregnant with another child, so they continued to extend. And that was a really great opportunity for me. For those of you who are students here in the chat, it's a lot of networking, which is fantastic, to stay in touch with people who you know, if it's, student teaching placement or your participatory observation, or even, schools that you've gone to or subbed at, reaching out to people and finding out where jobs are going to become available is super important.
Yeah, and so I was focused on my local community. I'm still CNY, and my student teaching placements and practicum experiences were both in a local town that I knew I was going to be moving into. So, those experiences matter, the way that you interact at each one of those different kind of layers on the way up. And so I was able to get that job, even though at that time, I think, I was one of 2 hires that year and probably over 200 applicants, so the educational cycle is, it's up and down, and it's a great time to go right now if you can handle all the things that are changing, but the market is going to just getting really interesting, I think. But so yeah, I got hired right out, but then my life shifted and I realized I wasn't really cut out to be around small children all day, every day, and then come home and be a decent human to the other people in my life. So I was able to transition out and do well.
My first job, job search. So I applied to literally like 100 schools. New York, Vermont, Florida, Denver, California, anywhere. I was gonna I was gonna try to get a job. Um, the ones that actually got back to me were Florida, but Florida's school systems are not really the best. Um, and I got my sub job in Ithaca. The PE, the head of PE wanted to keep me in with their program. So he extended my placement for a couple more weeks. So that meant a couple more weeks of money. During prime COVID time, this time exactly a year ago. And then a teacher was supposed to retire in Ithaca, and he was ready to give me the position. So I got interviewed for it. They verbally gave me the job, and then they said, "We're sorry, the person decided to not retire this year." And then like everything just took a U-turn. Um, because I was already planning where I'm gonna move to Ithaca, because I was currently in Cortland and I would commute to Ithaca because it wasn't that bad a ride at all. So then that happened, and then I got accepted. Actually, the person I replaced also graduated from Cortland, at my current school. So it was crazy because he made like a little Ithaca joke about Cortica, and I thought he went to Ithaca. So I'm like in the interview, I'm like, hold on. This is already biased because we have a rival here. But then I later found out he actually graduated from Cortland. Um, so it was just pretty funny how like Cortland always like sees each other or meets each other eventually, especially in the school system. But yeah.
Thank you. So I'm sure we have both a mix of students and probably some folks who maybe are just starting out their careers. What would be your recommendation for students or looking graduates, alums who are looking for teaching positions? What would you recommend they do now while they're searching? I think Andre's raising his hand. Oh, he's waving.
I
Yeah,
can
just waving to Clay kids. It's just good to see the family. But Dr. Ted, go for it.
All right, one is do your research and do your homework. I can't tell you how many resumes and cover letters I have that are addressed to Dr. Futon. They misspell my name, or they put down the wrong title, grammatical errors in the cover letter and on the resume. And if I'm going through a batch of 70, 80, 90 resumes for an open position, it's not going to get looked at. I've had resumes sent where it's sent to the wrong person, my predecessor in my position. So that means, that they went from a dated database or things like that. So that's number one. Number two is when you do your cover letters, make sure that you try to find something out about the district that you like, other than the fact that they have an open job. So, obviously you're putting in because you want to get a position, but do the research and find out something about their program, find out something about the building or the district that you're applying for, and be able to incorporate that in your cover letter briefly, but on why that's made a connection for you and why you think that would be a good fit. That personalizes the letter a little bit, shows me it's not a generic template, and that you're putting some specific time into trying to get our attention to be a candidate for the position. So.
Yeah, for me, applying is important, right? First of all, finding some place and apply. I know a lot of people, a lot of former students, talking to them, whatever field they're getting into, they don't apply. They hold themselves back. So just turning in those applications is important. And yeah, as Ted said, making sure that the information is valid and current and up to date. But also, I remember, undergraduate and graduate degrees, a lot of focus in the classroom was on theory and kind of ideas behind that. And I remember, we had to put together a binder. I think it was like a 4-inch binder of all these lessons and all this information. And I brought it to the interview and I handed it. I said, "Here's my binder." And the principal took it and handed it to the head of the department, and she opened it and flipped a couple pages and closed it and said, "That's very nice." And unfortunately, for me and my experiences and other people, the binder that you have there isn't the most important thing. It's the real experience. So, for education majors, paying attention when you are student teaching and getting your hands on with whatever the learning is. In my classroom, I hang up a poster. I always point to it over there. It says, "Experience is the best teacher." So, when you're applying places, if you say, "Hey, I just graduated," you should be also to say, "And I was substituting in these districts. I've done these things. I've done those things. I student taught here, and I'm signed up to sub in these districts." So definitely get out there and sub while you can, and have updated important information as you're applying. And that hands-on stuff is super important.
I would be remiss if I didn't give the career services plug right here. So, career services, one of the great things, there's a lot of great things about SUNY Cortland. It's why I am still here, right? But things that we do that a lot of colleges don't do is to provide services to you guys as alumni for essentially for life at this point, so use our services. We do resumes, we do cover letters, we do mock interviews, we do all of this counseling now remote. Like, that's the best thing that happened in COVID for the work that we do, is now I can where you are, right? So we're doing things, and we know years now in education. I'm a parent of two, or a child of two SUNY educated retired teachers, so we know a lot about these things, and we want to be able to help you. Me personally, what I would encourage you to do is really dig into it, because the market, we need amazing teachers. We absolutely do. Cortland prepares amazing teachers. Andrea was one of my first professors. Cortland prepares teachers. Know that, sell that, be flexible. The world is changing. Figure out how you can hunt in the mix, and you will be hired.
To, even if you're not certified yet, to still apply to that job if you're if you're going for a teaching position, because some schools, they allow you a grace period to get that certification before or while you start the position. That didn't, like, I got my certification before, but I know a lot of people who they applied to schools and they were asking if they had their certification, and then they gave them, I think, 3 or 6 months. It depends where, to get that. I would also recommend to apply everywhere. Because, for example, wanted to get out of New York at one point. So I was looking at Florida, California, Denver, and there is so much more out there than just New York. So I wouldn't, I don't want to say close-minded, but try to like think out of the box or do something that you might not really want to do or don't think you'll be able to do, because it'll definitely be worth it.
Okay. The next question is, as a first year teacher, tell us some of your experiences and things that you would do differently.
So when I saw the list of questions provided, that definitely got the brain going. First thing, as a first year teacher, just remember you're not alone, and that everybody that you're working with has gone through that experience at some point. It could be described different ways. I've always described it, you feel like the barn is falling on you. You everyone has felt that intensity. Everyone has felt that adrenaline of that constant trying to learn the craft, get used to a new building, and try to hone and get your feet wet started in a profession all at the same time. And so we've all been there. So based off of that, you're not alone. Hook yourself up with people within the building that you can trust, that you want to model yourself with regards to lesson planning, with regards to activities, with regards to just someone to talk to as you're going through certain situations and questions you might have. The second thing is there are listservs available. If you're an American history teacher, find yourself an online community to talk to. Social media, chats, groups, you name it. Exchange lesson plans, exchange activities. Be a good thief. The best teacher is a good thief, and the highest compliment you could pay a colleague is if you take an activity or a lesson that someone has provided and use that as a basis, make some tweaks to make it your own, but at least utilize that foundation. And then the last thing I did, and it's going to sound corny, when I was student teaching, I was at Cortland High School and went through the program at the time with the social studies program, is they made me keep a diary of my lessons. And I remember when I was student teaching, I was like, this is ridiculous. Here I am, I'm Ted, I'm keeping a diary. It's something I continue to do once I started teaching. And really what it allows you to do at the end of the day is decompress what worked, what didn't work. What were interactions with kids that you were pleased with? What were some interactions with students that you would read or do differently if you had the opportunity? And just being able to have that and be able to look back at it at different times during the year, one, you're not going to be able to remember everything, so it kind of refreshes your memory. And two, it kind of gives you a gauge of the growth and the personal growth that you're going through the year. So, like I said, it's really to be open. There are people in the building that love working with younger teachers. You're not alone. Get yourself into a collaborative group outside of the building too as well. And keep a diary of your experiences that you can go back and it can help you as you progress through the year.
Do you have my audio here now? No. Yes. Okay.
One
Technical problems. Oh, Andre, sorry, you're next.
I mean, if you want to jump in and if you got something. So my first year, one of the largest challenges that I had was being 22 years old in a classroom with 18 and 19-year-olds. And I remember one day it was basketball season, so all the guys were dressed up with a shirt and a tie. And there was some sort of activity we were doing where people were in groups, and I was walking around and meeting with them. And somebody else walked into the room and just kind of like stared and looked at us. And we kind of stopped and stared and looked at the other teacher who walked in. And she said, "Where's your teacher? Like, who's in charge here?" And I was like, "Hey, like, that's me. What's up?" So one of those things is kind of bridging that gap of being friendly with your students and also being the person who's in charge of things. I learned that lesson when I was student teaching in the Syracuse City School District, trying to joke around a little bit too much with a few classes of students and not focusing on the teaching. So for the people who are out there almost going to be in classrooms, I definitely be sure to focus on the teaching aspect first, be great at that, and then, of course, building those relationships and establishing those connections with students is super important, and that's what makes a good teacher a great teacher. But understanding where that boundary is important. Also, my first year in Mr. Short's bonus mystery prize box. A student won a vocab prize, pulled it out. It was a boomerang. Don't put a boomerang in the bonus mystery prize box because they're going to go out into the halls. And once they're out of the classroom, anything can happen.
Nice. So yeah, first year in any role, and I guess I'll just speak to any role, it's learning for everyone. If you're a new director, if you're a new superintendent, the expectation is you're not going to have it all together that first year. So give yourself a little space in that. It's totally okay. Figure out who the good, solid professionals are would be my recommendation, and try to model yourself after them. Try not to get pulled into anything that could have a negative impact on you as a professional. If you get into any kind of inner office or inner school kind of politicking or drama, just take that slow and be really careful. So you start out with a solid reputation, and you can make or break it pretty quick. And even if you stay there, your reputation sticks no matter what happens. So just think of that as you're new, and give yourself the ability to make some mistakes. It's all right.
To piggyback on what Andre said about, the age difference, I was 22 when I first got the job, and I'm teaching high school students. So, like, I listen to the same music as as the kids. So one thing I learned, and I'm sure this is for everybody, you may know, but find ways to relate to the students. I know what type of music I listen to, and some of the students would recommend songs. So I would play songs, and they would love it while we're exercising. Sometimes I'll play the explicit songs, so there might be some curses, and they like that. I made sure it was approved. I approved that with my boss. Especially once I heard they were playing music with curses, so I'm like, okay. But yeah, most of these students are 15 to 18, and I was 22 years old, so I had to make sure I had that boundary. Like, okay, listen, if you work with me, I can work with you. So we got that respect um part there, and that's like a huge. The students, they appreciate having young teachers. They tell me, and they're like, Mr. A, we like you because you're not an old bald man who just sits down all day. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you. So it's good that they have like that kind of appreciation towards you, and it makes you feel better as a teacher.
Thank you. So the next question I would have are, what challenges have you all faced, whether it be in the classroom or whatever position you're in now? So as a superintendent, whatever one you want to talk about, superintendent, classroom, all of the above. What are some of the challenges that you faced?
I would start with, and this goes for a classroom teacher to building administrator to district administrator, regardless of the position. We're in a people business, and everything is based off of relationships. Everything is based off of working with people. And especially now with everything that we've gone through since March, but even before that, with regards to, trauma-informed practices, and you never truly know the story of the student or the staff member that is sitting in front of you. So you try not to make assumptions, and try to, like, as a teacher, if that student isn't doing their homework, their classwork, or is being resistant, there might be something else more going on. And it's not a child or a student trying to personally disrespect you. It's just part of what's going on in their story right now. And it's your job to find out and to dig deeper. And how could you be seen as an asset or a support? And it's the same thing as a building administrator, and it's the same thing as a district administrator. Two things that you need to ask as you work with people: what do you need, and how can I help? You do those two things in whatever role you are, and you're going to see that you're going to be in a position where people will be more receptive to you and your ideas, and that you're going to actually, it's going to be very rewarding, fulfilling for you as you serve a role, as you become people's go-to person?
Yeah, piggybacking off people comments, the largest challenge that I'd say is communication. And a lot of times, parents will feel like they're not in the loop with things. And I was just listening to NPR and heard about helicopter parents being a large focus with education, and we're kind of shifting into a new style of parenting from that. And there's a comic strip that I hang behind my desk, and it says, 19 something, the parents are standing next to the teacher, looking at the student, saying, what about these grades? And then it says today, and the parents are standing behind the student, looking at the teacher with their arms crossed, like, what about these grades? So you shouldn't see this as the teacher against anybody. Our goal is to help students. Our goal is to work together. Some parents, will do anything for you and help out in any way. And, if an email is sent out to them, or if they're contacting you after report cards for any reason, it's a lot of positivity saying, how can I help? What can we do? But there are other parents who don't have that approach. So for me, a lot of communication is super important. When I started teaching in 2011, I had a website. I put all of our assignments on there, much like you see at college. That's a good way for students to be able to see the homework every single day, to see the assignments. Any notes that I created, anything that I hand to students in class, any handouts, anything that I put on the screen behind me for the PowerPoint presentation, that was all on the internet. And like Dr. Ted said, sharing things with people is great. I told other teachers, if you see anything on my website that you want, go for it. If I was borrowing other people's things, I put their name and said credit to this person for sharing this with me. So putting that online to allow parents to see what was going on. Then I can say, hey, I've been sharing all of these notes with you for the entire year. Every single assignment is there. Every single handout, every single thing is on the website. And that's really open communication. A lot of people talk about transparency today and being able to show, what you're doing. That is super important, because when people feel like they're in the dark and they don't know what's going on, if you're a parent and you get a letter at home that says, hey, your kid's failing, they want to blame you for that. And there are a lot of ways to be sure that we're all sharing the responsibility instead of blaming others. I also want to give a quick shout out to my mom. She's calling user number 3. What's up, Mom? Thanks for being here.
Good job, Andre.
Thanks.
Invite your mom to everything. My mom came to every game I coached. My mom came to events. My brother, when he would do art shows, he's a teacher too. The kids will love having your mom on campus. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's great. She's supporting me all the time. It's
I could go next. One thing I feel is challenging, I think as a first year teacher, is that I made the mistake early on to wanting to do everything. Don't do that. Try to figure out your craft first and try to figure out who you are as a teacher. Sadly, my first year teaching was on Zoom University. But I feel like even on Zoom, you would expect what we do in a PE class is basically exercise. We talk about life, and we have these journals, these SEO journals that we incorporate, and it's like other schools are taking our ideas, which again, as Dr. Fulton said, it's a compliment. Was it Dr. Fulton's?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a compliment when you're getting work or you're borrowing work from other people. So that's how we took it. Another thing I would say that's challenging is, as a PE teacher, is you can only do so much on Zoom. We have a class of 60 minutes, 60 minutes. So realistically, you're not going to exercise for 60 minutes. So you have to specifically plan out what you want to do. A lot of trials and errors, but you could fix that. The perks about it is that you could fix it and make it better for the next class or next time. But yeah, I would just say, try to figure your crafts first and then figure out how do you want to go about things, especially because you're a first year teacher, so you can't really say everything you really want to say. You have to kind of fall back, learn how the school works, um, or you'll get yelled at the principal by like me. That's all.
We do have one quick question, and then I'll let Michelle answer. Vanessa wanted to know, do you have any tips for handling parents who don't want to be on your team? And seeing how we were just talking about that, I think it'd be a great place to kind of jump in on that, if anybody would like to jump in.
I would like, what Andre said was great is when you have open transparency, even if they're against, you're going to have some people that are just going to disagree with what you're doing. But if your overall practice is going to be here, here's what we're doing, here's the curriculum, here's how I grade, here are the assignments. If you're absent or if you fall behind, here's where you can go to make up the items. As long as you have those established routines and you have the established two-way communication, you're going to get 90-some-odd% of your parents on board. If you have that difficult parent that's not on board, you still keep doing your job. Do not take it personal, because I guarantee you that parent's being difficult to other teachers too as well, and has been difficult along the process. Keep a log, keep doing what you're doing, don't change what you're doing, keep trying to build a relationship with that student, and then depending if you're elementary, keep your building principal in the loop. If you're in the secondary, keep your department chairperson and your building administration, so that way they don't get caught off guard or with any surprises. And that would be the best recommendation. So, like, for example, if you're a parent really giving you a difficult time, and I'm working on the elementary level, you could just give your principal a heads up. Say, listen, here's what the parents' concerns are. Here's what I've done. Here's the information I've shared. Here's where I've contacted. Here's what I've said. And that puts that person in the best position to go to bat for you. If an administrator or your supervisor gets caught off guard, that's when you might have difficulty. And just remember, you're not going to be able to please every parent. You're not. It's not going to happen. Don't attempt to do it. Don't try to do it. And like I said, guaranteed, if the student's in fifth grade, I bet you if you go back to their fourth and third and second grade teacher and mention the parent's name, they're going to go, oh, good luck with that. So, that's just the way it is. So it comes with the territory. It's why we get paid.
Yeah, everybody's got, different things that they approach with different styles. As far as parents not being on our team, I've always been told, make sure you record everything, document everything, when you call, when they call, all that information. I honestly don't document the calls as much as I used to. I've been trying to email mostly. There have been times, where I would call parents and I say, hey, it's a free period. I've got 5 more calls to make. I just wanted to give you a heads up. This is what's going on with your child in class. And then, 40 minutes is gone. I was talking to that one parent. But sending an email and getting that to everybody is great, because that way also the communication is logged as well. You can see when you sent the email, you can see what they responded, and you can refer back to that at any time it's necessary. And there's a whole spectrum of how parents can react to that. So no matter what, you have a record of that. Their demeanor and their approach to things is there, whether it's fantastic and they're on board, or the parents who want to blame everything on you, or want to there are a lot of scenarios, and I'm sure many of us could go into a lot of different stories about that, but the best thing and my advice for Vanessa, who said this, is just stay positive about things. The goal should be to help the student, and arguing back and forth with anybody isn't going to help. And oftentimes I'll say, my goal is to help your student do better. What's your goal? And from there, it kind of opens things up.
And even just to jump back, lead with the positive too. every student, there's at least something positive that you could hold on to and build on. And so when you're having the communication with that parent, that might be a little bit difficult. Keep returning to the student and the positives that you enjoy with working with that student, or any strengths that they might have in your class. That, 9 out of 10 times that will help disarm a parent, at least in the short term.
Perfect. I'm going to jump in to see if Michelle, if we can hear her yet. If not, we'll go to the next question. No. Poor Michelle. So you'll see in her comment that she said clearly it has been technology for her. The challenge this year has been technology. Just kind of some of the on and offs of things. It's definitely been a tough year. I think it's been a tough year for a lot of us. The next question we do have is, what things do you do to stay up to date? Like workshops, seminars, classes? What are some things that you recommend folks do to stay up to date?
For me, it's through organizations. Number one, like I mentioned a couple at the beginning, that before I became leadership in those organizations, I was just a member. Through the organizations, you have relationships, you have meetings, you have interaction, which is great. Social media now is fantastic. You go on Twitter, you go on Pinterest, you go on anywhere. There's so many outlets out there electronically to share and exchange curriculum, lesson plans, activities, and ideas, and that's how you can build relationships too as well. So that's another positive thing that's out there, that you no longer are isolated as you started out in teaching, but interact as much as possible in the profession. Old-fashioned conferences, they might be a little dated now, especially with COVID and everything else. Something like this is a perfect example. So it's a little combination of everything, but you have to make it a priority to put yourself out there, because if you're not careful, you can become encapsulated within your own classroom, and that's necessarily what you want to avoid. So take every opportunity that you can to interact with other practitioners, to exchange ideas, and to continue to hone your craft.
You're muted.
Andre, I think you're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Great question here. This is a good question for general audiences. It's sad that the people who need this information aren't getting it. Vanessa and Kayla, and is it Mika, who are here, Micah. You are obviously, if you're, students at the school now, you're obviously people who are looking for these things and trying to do these things. You're here paying attention to this, which is great. Even Clay and Jamie, like you guys are in education. I went to school with Clay and Jamie. We were all in Bishop Hall together. So it's good to see you guys here. And Lima, like I played volleyball with her. We won one of the tournaments. That was great. You guys probably remember her. But you guys are already here. You're already doing what you need to, which is nice. Looking at these emails, we get a lot of emails, and so many of them are garbage. It's just somebody trying to make money off of us, or some spam from whatever. But finding the things that are actually going to help us is what's great. And this is the most. I think this is going to be the most beneficial long-term advice I can give you. In regards to workshops and being updated. A friend of this said to me that they're teaching and doing this job for less money than doing the same exact job if they took these courses, right? There's so many courses that are going to move you up on step, that are going to get you paid more as you learn and become a better teacher. It also puts more money in your pocket, right? So if you take a course and you can earn an extra $500 every year for the next 30 years, that's a great course to sign up for. And as you move up on those steps in terms of payment, it's obviously great for you financially, but it also helps you grow as an educator as well. So a friend said to me, like, why are you doing this job for less money? Sign up for those that help you in the classroom as a teacher, but also help you financially. A lot of us like to joke about not earning a lot of money as teachers, and there are ways to earn more money and get better at the job at the same time. But one of the things that I've been doing is looking at, yes, this workshop or this class or whatever it is may cost me $300 right now, but I'm going to earn $500 every year for the next 30 years, and I'm going to have gained something. So I know a lot of people just look for the free workshop, and I know you have to get like the hours, and I don't even know what they changed some of the restrictions or requirements to now of 175 hours, and many of them have to be ELL and all that. So satisfy those things, but also think about yourself and your future as well.
I think one thing that I benefit from as a physical education teacher and as being or teaching from home, I have a lot of other physical education friends who graduated from Cortland and who are all over the world. I have friends in Florida, Ithaca, Syracuse, Jersey, Baltimore, and I kind of keep in contact with them and see, even if they're not in my specific subject area, I still try to like get ideas from them, and try to do some cross curriculum because it might be a little difficult if you don't collab with other teachers. But because I have a lot of teaching friends and a lot of physical or fitness trainer friends who also help, especially because I'm basically just exercising with the students and doing some SEO components. So definitely reaching out. Sadly, I haven't really done any any seminars because of COVID, but I definitely would like to go to Turning Stone sometime. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask one more question and then we'll open it for questions. If you wanted to advance in this career, what are some of the opportunities you can take to advance yourself? And what are some things that folks could do if they're interested in going into different roles?
The big thing is just put yourself open to experiences. When I first started, I never thought I was going to be an administrator. When I left Cortland, I was going to teach social studies, I was going to coach football and baseball, and that's what I was going to do. And my second year teaching, my superintendent pulled me aside and asked me to participate on a curriculum committee that was working with Columbia University at the time. So I said, okay. I was open to new experience. Then he asked me if I wanted to be part of a foreign exchange program that we had at the district. Now, I didn't realize it, but my superintendent was testing me to see if I'd be open for new opportunities and actually had begun to start grooming me. I didn't realize I was getting prepared to leave the classroom at the time. But the most important thing is be open to those opportunities when they come across. And that's really what got it started, and you take a look what's available in the building that you're working. You build a relationship with your administrator. How can I help? What can put you in the best position to help students? And next thing you know, you might be working in an after-school extra help program. You might be asked to join a curriculum committee. You might be asked to do certain different things. And as you experience those, that'll help kind of clarify where your path might be, where your path might go. Go beyond your own classroom and really take a look and see each building in each district has opportunities out there for you to continue to grow as an educator. So be open to them and don't be afraid to say yes to them.
Yeah, for us as educators, the only way to get a promotion is, be the department head or a curriculum coordinator or administration at some level. So a lot of teachers come into it say, I don't want to be a building principal. I don't want to be a superintendent. There are a lot of other positions that are administration adjacent that still allow you to be in the classroom, or becoming a department head or something like that will give you the opportunity to still impact the students and kind of see a transitional time if you do like administration work or something else. I still like being in the classroom. Continuing on and advancing is really improving the skills that I have and looking into other courses that we can teach. At school, we just suggested a few new electives for students to be able to take. Instead of just, teaching English 12 for, 30 years and then retiring. It's nice to be teaching public speaking with students now, and we've just proposed a couple new electives in the English department to help us branch out and kind of cover some new ground and have ourselves stay sharp as teachers. I know a lot of you, if you're underclassmen, it's a challenge to keep your head above water the first few years and make all of those lesson plans. It does get easier. I know the lesson plan, I used to write like 5 or 7 pages of lesson plans for a 40-minute period. And after that, it's a great basis to have, because then you won't need to do that as you have that experience of doing it. So looking at adjacent opportunities and finding those things is really fantastic.
I'm going to speak on my own experience. I only have my bachelor's degree, so definitely going for my master's. I'm in like a frenzy because my goal in life was to work in higher ed, and I'm in the fence of, do I go for my health master's or go for something in higher ed? So definitely trying to settle that down. I also believe that the experiences that you had in undergrad lead you to opportunities. For example, I've I don't know if any of you know Men of Value and Excellence, the club on campus, but I was a part of that for 4 years. We've held crazy, amazing events with hundreds of people, and it was a pretty big thing on campus. Now I just got offered from my school to run the men's empowerment program. So I'm pretty hyped up for that next year, and I think that, other than the opportunities I would be able to receive, I think that the students could definitely learn a lot from me and my experiences. So definitely use your past experience.
Great, thank you all. So we do have a question. This is the time that you can ask some questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to, you can even unmute yourself and ask the questions if you'd like, or you can put them in the chat, whatever you're more comfortable with. Jamie asked, do you have any examples or tips on how to be creative in your lessons or in your approach to teaching, especially older kids?
Yes, corny still works. Even when I taught high school, I taught 11th and 12th grade seniors, and they would fight still over stickers, pencils, or any kind of little reward things. I never did a boomerang, which went out into the hallway, but they would go. I used to think of Monopoly money, and I used to call it Fulton dollars. And I would have a prize list, and they would save it up for the year. And a lot of the times it would be for homework, for classwork, and for those kinds of things. But then I'd be prizes, like gift cards or going to the movies or things like that. And corny still works even with the older kids. So don't be afraid to do those kinds of things. The second thing is with regards to creativity is that think of all the teachers that you've had. How many have actually stood out instructionally? Why did they stand out instructionally? And that means because they might have broken away from the traditional lesson or activity design from time to time, and that's what you remember. So don't be afraid to do that. And don't be afraid to try something new and try something creative. If an activity fails in the middle of it, okay, you stop it and try another one. That's okay. And the kids will even see that, and you'll be honest with them, like, all right, guys, this didn't work. Let's try something different. But the big thing is give them experiences that stand out. If you're a secondary teacher and a student has 9 periods a day, and the lesson plan, design, and instruction mirrors the same for 9 periods, it all melds in for them. If you're an elementary student and teacher and their subjects all follow the same pattern, again, it's not going to stand out. So don't be afraid to have something in your activity or lesson design that is uniquely yours and speaks to you, because that's what the students will remember.
Yeah, being a human and what your interests are. Mo said this earlier. Showing who you are and what you're into is great. And Dr. Fulton just said it here. It's finding something that you liked about other teachers and doing something that's interesting for you and your interests. I had a student message me. She must have graduated in 2014, and she messaged me and she's like, "Oh, remember that time you took a bite of Mark's sandwich in class?" And like, yeah, of course I do. It was right after lunch. I didn't get a chance to eat because I was grading, and I said, "Hey, I'm hungry. Can I get a bite of that sandwich?" I let them eat in my class if they're quiet. He said, "Yeah." So I made it seem like I was going to take a small bite, but I fit as much of the sandwich in my mouth as I could and ate essentially half of this kid's sandwich. And Mark was cool with it. He was fine. A lot of students don't remember like that MLA lesson was really great. Like I know how to cite a paper. Like that's awesome. Those are kind of the soft skills. Like nobody's memory is, oh, I remember like that poetry lesson where I looked at coupling rhymes. They remember the personal things in class. In my slideshows, I only know what I know. I'm one brain. I have one way of approaching things. It's great to collaborate and ask students to add things to the lessons. But a lot of times I'll show video clips. If it's a 30-second clip, if it's a 2-minute clip, don't rely on, hey guys, we're watching a movie today. It's playing a video for the full period, unless it's Bill Nye the Science Guy, is not a good idea. So finding other clips, where people talk about things. I talk about plot structure and the idea of rising action and falling action in English. There's a guy online called Lessons from the Screenplay, and he talks about this with Avengers films. So we watch a 7-minute clip where he explains plot structure with some spoilers, and I warned them of that. And that's not me standing up in front of them for 40 minutes, or some of you 80 minutes if it's block scheduling. That can get annoying, right? It's nice that we have a panel of several people to talk today, because if it's just one person standing there talking to you, lecturing for 40 minutes, it's a challenge. So breaking it up and using other resources to get things to be more interesting, and also having fun with students in whatever way that is for you is super important.
What was that last question again? Sorry, I was so into the conversation.
Jamie wanted to know some lesson tips that you could use specifically even for older kids.
I would just recommend, as previously stated multiple times, is to find something to connect, some way to connect to these students. Even if that's music or movies or sports. I always the first 15 minutes of the class, we just talk, because I know in the other classes, the students are only talking if they're talking about schoolwork or a reading, and the kids appreciated like learning about everybody. I have a pet rabbit and the kids love that. So sometimes if I'm doing yoga on the floor, he'll come hopping around and everybody would just be like, "Oh my God." So we'll have to stop and they'll have to see the rabbit and mess around. Um, I know that's the same with kids and dogs, but they like to know about you. So, I think definitely opening up and to a certain extent, and telling them a little bit about your personal life.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have some additional questions to ask these folks? Oh, here's a good one. From Vanessa, in terms of the master's program, did you continue your studies while teaching or complete your schooling before taking a full-time job?
Great question. And I actually I coached to pay for my master's. So it really depends on each of their situation. So again, I was 21 years old, right out of college, working that job, and I actually taught and took a class or two at night in the evenings. So, which was also good because I was around other like-minded people working on the program, which was another great way to network and to be out there. So, but it really depends on the individual situation. Some people get worried. I always hear, "Oh, don't go for your master's because you might make yourself too expensive when you're getting your job and your tenure." And I can honestly say that's never been the case. If you've decided what your passion is for the master's, and it's something to be able to pursue, and you can do that while still teaching and do it in a manageable way, most certainly do that. Now, if it turns out that you don't have a full-time job and that you're working and you're starting to pursue that master's, could make you more marketable, especially if the master's might be something like TESOL, working with the English language population, or maybe literacy or special education. That master's could also make you more marketable. So it really depends on your situation, and what you need to do is reach out to people like me and say, okay, here are my options, solutions. Reach out to obviously Alumni Services and Shauna and all that, and talk to people to see what would best fit your needs.
Yeah, New York State is kind of limiting as to what you can get a master's in. Similarly related field is what they say. And I remember when I was applying for some programs, they actually, I called New York State and they said, well, after you take the classes, submit them to us and we'll let you know if you're approved. And I said, that doesn't really make sense to spend 2 years and tens of thousands of dollars to think maybe I could get this certification. So Cortland's great. They have a lot of opportunities. I did go back through Cortland for my master's of literacy. To answer your question directly, I started teaching as soon as I finished my student teaching. I taught for, I think it was a year or a year and a half, and then I enrolled in master's courses. So many of these programs understand that you're teaching. I think that your number one objective should be to get a job. You can earn your master's degree as you're teaching. And that helped me in my program. When I was teaching, I could say, oh, I need a case study from class. I'm gonna pick, I just ate Mark's sandwich. We've got a good relationship. Let me work with him and he could be my case study. And then there were other students who didn't have that choice. They had to go into a school and find a student to do those things. And a lot of these master's programs know that everybody, or half of the people there are teachers. So they're flexible and set up for you to be able to teach and get your degree at the same time. It was nice for me. I was fortunate to be able to teach, for a year and a half, and then get into the program to kind of get my feet on solid ground and then jump into it. But yeah, as Michelle said in the chat, it's different for everybody. Clay and Jamie, you'll remember Stefan when he was with us. He did it a smart way. He was not an education major as his undergraduate degree, and then he went for education for his master's. Because before, when we were getting ready to graduate, New York State said you have 5 years and you must teach for 2 years and get your master's within those 5 years. So a lot of us were panicking. I applied to jobs where there were 200 or 250 applications. There are a lot of teachers, and now I feel like it's kind of waning the other way. Nobody wants to teach. So it's good for a lot of you who are looking to put in applications now. But Stefan did a great job. Stefan, sorry, I have a student, Stefan. He did a great job of getting his master's in education after, so that clock wasn't starting. But there are a lot of ways to go. And yeah, you've got career services, and they know a lot of what's going on with that.
Great. And I think as Michelle put in I'm going to read Michelle's just so in case you haven't seen it. She kind of went through her master's program. What'd she say? Full time. But she was talking about how every path is different for everyone. And just kind of look at your own timeline. She said, waiting to sort out any additional certifications you may be more interested in pursuing as you discover more of your interest in your focused areas. So I think that's kind of important to know as well. Does anybody else have any other questions for our panelist? I think Michelle's typing. I see Michelle typing. I think there's been some great questions. That's okay. There's been some great questions, and if there's not any additional questions, I want to thank all of our panelists, and I want to say thank you for your time. We really appreciate it, and I appreciate the attendees attending this session, and I hope it was helpful to you. I think it's great always to be able to have the chance to talk to folks who are actually doing it. You can pick their brains a little bit and learn about some of the things that they're doing, some things that worked and didn't work. So I'm hoping this was a good opportunity for you to hear what some other folks have gone through. So again, I want to say thank you to everybody and thank you for joining us. And I hope everybody has a good night.
Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
So
Nice to see you.
Bye, everybody.